They say if you love someone, you give them your all. For 9 years, I gave my brother Leo everything: my time, my dreams, my entire life. I thought it was the most honest work I would ever do. I didn't know my own family was keeping score, waiting for the moment my love would finally be worth enough to steal. Before we continue, please subscribe to the channel and let me know where you're listening from in the comments. My name is Cassie. My younger brother Leo has cerebral palsy. After our parents split and our dad vanished, caring for Leo just became my life. I got good at it. I learned his therapies, his medications, the way he laughs with his whole body when his favorite cartoon is on. My world shrunk to the walls of our small apartment, and I told myself it was enough. He was enough. The change came with a lawyer's letter. Our great-aunt Evelyn, a woman we'd met maybe 3 times, had passed away. She was wealthy and famously private. The family gathered in a stiff, quiet office to hear the will. When the lawyer read the clause about Leo, the heir left the room. Aunt Evelyn had left a trust. A $12 million trust. The money was for, and I'll never forget the exact words, the health, comfort, and lifelong care of Leo Vance. The payments would be managed by his court-appointed legal guardian. Everyone looked at me. I was the obvious choice. For a dizzying second, I saw a future, a better wheelchair-accessible van, top-tier specialists, maybe even a small house with a garden. Security. For the first time in a decade, I felt hope instead of exhaustion. That hope was the bait in the trap. The first sign was my mother, Diane. She started visiting more, bringing casseroles and criticism. This physical therapy seems so strenuous for him, Cassie. Are you sure? Then my older brother, Mark, would call. You're looking thin. Stressed. This is too much for one person. We're family. Let us help. Their help was a constant, gentle pressure. They suggested we get a professional assessment of Leo's needs. They hired a consultant, a stern woman who took notes as I did Leo's exercises. I felt like I was being audited in my own home. The hammer fell on a Tuesday morning. A man in a suit was at my door, holding a thick envelope. It wasn't a trust disbursement. It was a petition. My mother and brother were seeking full legal guardianship of Leo. The reason stated: the current caregiver, Cassandra Vance, is emotionally unstable and financially incompetent, posing a risk to the beneficiary's well-being. The words blurred. I read lines about my isolated lifestyle being a sign of instability, my lack of a salary job as financial irresponsibility. They had testimonies from the consultant, from a neighbor they'd gotten to. It was a portrait of a woman falling apart, a portrait I never saw being painted. Before I could even call a lawyer, there was a knock. It was a stranger, a woman with a crisp uniform and a cold smile. I'm Gabriella, the new live-in nurse. The family sent me. I'll be taking over Leo's care effective immediately. I stood there, blocking the door, my heart pounding. Taking over? I'm his sister. I'm his caregiver. Not according to the temporary emergency order, Gabriella said, handing me another paper. It was signed by a judge. It granted temporary guardianship to my mother and barred me from disruptive contact. I heard Leo call my name from inside, confused. I tried to push past her, but she held her ground. You need to leave, Ms. Vance, or I will call the police. You're upsetting the patient. My mother's car pulled up. She didn't look at me. She walked past with a set of Leo's new medical files. It's for the best, Cassie. You need to rest. We'll handle the trust money properly. I was shoved out of my own life. I stood on the sidewalk with a trash bag of my clothes, watching through the window as a stranger wheeled my brother away from view. The trust fund for his lifelong care had just been activated, and my family had legally kidnapped him to get to it. I had given them 9 years of my life. They had given me a single, brutal lesson. To them, love was just a liability. And they had just erased mine. The first week was a blur of cheap motel rooms and a silence so heavy it hurts. I wasn't just homeless. I was erased. My purpose, my brother, my entire world was locked inside my own apartment with a stranger. My family had not just sidelined me. They had made me a ghost. I had to fight, but I had no money and a legal record now painting me as unstable. My first stop was the courthouse to contest the guardianship. The clerk looked at my file with pity. Your family has a lawyer, Miss Vance. A good one. You need one too. With what? I had $80 in my wallet. I crashed on the couch of my only friend, Sonia. She let me cry, then made me eat. Think, Cassie. Your aunt left that money for Leo. She must have known your family was like this. Her words sparked a memory. Months ago, a box had arrived from Aunt Evelyn's estate, old books and trinkets nobody else wanted. I'd shoved it in Sonia's storage unit. We dug it out that night. Underneath musty novels, I found a leather journal and a bundle of letters tied with ribbon. The journal was Aunt Evelyn's private thoughts. The entries about my family were icy. Diane only sees $signs. Mark is his father's son, all greed and no grace. My heart hammered as I turned the pages. Then I found it. An entry from just before she died. The trust is for Leo's care, but my true wish is for Cassie to have the means to build her own life, with him if she chooses. The money is the vehicle, but her freedom is the destination. I fear my sister's family will try to steer. She saw it coming. She left me a message, and I'd almost missed it. The letters were different. They were between Evelyn and a man named Nathan. Love letters, filled with regret about a past they couldn't reclaim. The last letter had a return address, a remote town in the mountains. Nathan was Leo's father, the man who walked out before Leo was born. It was a wild, desperate shot. I used my last money for a bus ticket. I found Nathan not as a deadbeat, but as a quiet, retired contract lawyer living in a cabin, haunted by his past. I showed him the journal and the guardianship papers. He read them, his hands shaking. I failed him once by leaving, he said, his voice rough. I won't fail him again by staying quiet. Nathan became my strategist. We can't just say they're greedy, he explained. We have to prove they are violating the core purpose of the trust, Leo's care. We need evidence of malfeasance. The plan was dangerous. I started surveilling my own life. From Sonia's car, I watched the apartment. I saw the new van, the luxury model, bought with trust funds for Leo's transport. I saw my brother Mark wearing a watch that cost more than my old yearly salary. Nathan called in a favor from a forensic accountant. The trust statements, which my mother legally withheld from me, told a brutal story. Massive transfers to household accounts, payments to my mother's personal decorator for home modifications, withdrawals for administrative fees that went directly to Mark. They were looters, treating the trust like a personal ATM. But the hardest evidence to get was the proof of neglect. I needed to see Leo. I waited until Gabriella took him for a walk in his wheelchair. I approached, my heart in my throat. Leo. It's me. His face lit up, then crumpled in confusion. He struggled to form words on his tablet. Gabriella stepped between us. You need to leave. But Leo's fingers tapped frantically. I looked over her shoulder at his screen. The words were simple, earth-shattering. They say stop walking. More money if I stay sick. The world tilted. I understood instantly. To keep the guardianship and the cash flow permanent, they needed him to appear more disabled. They were sabotaging his progress. I barely got away before Gabriella could call the police. I sat in Sonia's car, shaking with a rage so pure it was cold. This wasn't just greed. It was monstrous. They were harming my brother to keep their hold on a bank account. I had my evidence. The financial theft. The journal of intent. Now, the ultimate betrayal. Proof they were willing to damage Leo himself to maintain control. I had everything I needed to destroy them in court. But as Nathan reviewed it all, his face grew grim. This is powerful, Cassie. But it's still a he said, she said. Your word against theirs, and you're the one labeled unstable by the court. We need a witness. Someone from inside. He looked at me. We need to turn to the nurse. It was the biggest risk yet. Gabriella held the keys to my brother's daily life and my family's secrets. If she refused, she would tell my mother, and they would hide everything. I had to walk back into the lion's den and offer the lion's keeper a deal. And I had to do it before the next court hearing, where my family planned to make the guardianship permanent. Turning Gabriella was the most dangerous thing I had ever done. I couldn't just call her. My family had her loyal, or at least her scared. I waited for her routine. Every Thursday, she took Leo to a crowded sensory therapy play center. I went early, my stomach in knots, and waited by the coffee kiosk she always used. When she walked up, alone for just a moment, I stepped beside her. Gabriella. My name is Cassie. I need 5 minutes. Not as his sister. As someone who knows what my family is really doing with the trust money. She stiffened, her eyes darting toward where Leo was. I have nothing to say to you. I will call security. You could, I said, keeping my voice low and steady. Or you could look at this first. I slid my phone across the counter. On the screen was a single document, the forensic accountant's summary, showing a $45,000 transfer from the trust marked Nurse's Annual Bonus that never reached her. It went to a shell company owned by my brother. I watched her eyes scan the numbers. A flicker of anger. They were stealing from her, too. They're draining that trust for everything but your brother, I said. And they're asking you to slow his progress, aren't they? To keep him dependent. Her professional mask cracked. She looked tired. They say it is for his safety. Less strain. It's for their financial safety, I said. If he improves, the court could give me guardianship back. They lose control of the money. They're using you to commit medical fraud. When this falls apart, and it will, who do you think will take the professional blame? The nurse following orders, or the family with the expensive lawyer? I saw the calculation in her eyes. Fear of losing her license. Outrage at being used and cheated. What do you want? She whispered. Your testimony. A signed affidavit about the pressure to limit his therapy and the true conditions in that apartment. You do that, and I will guarantee you are portrayed as a witness who came forward, not a participant. And I will make sure you get every penny of that bonus they stole from you. She was silent for a long moment. Then she gave a single, sharp nod. I will need my own lawyer. Already arranged, I said, handing her Nathan's card. The plan was in motion. The final guardianship hearing was a different world. The first time, I'd been alone and shell-shocked. This time, I walked in with Nathan by my side and a file full of fire. My mother and brother sat with their slick attorney, looking confident. They didn't see Gabriella sitting quietly in the back. Their lawyer began, painting the same picture, my instability, their benevolent concern, the improved, professional care Leo was now receiving. He asked for permanent guardianship. When he finished, the judge turned to me. Ms. Vance? You are contesting. Nathan stood. We are, Your Honor. And we move to dismiss the petition on grounds of fraudulent intent and malfeasance. The family's lawyer scoffed. What followed was a surgical strike. Nathan introduced evidence in 3 acts. First, the financials. Charts showing the luxury purchases, the cash transfers, the blatant theft from a trust meant for care. My mother's face went pale as her own signature appeared on documents for a swimming pool installation at her home, labeled hydrotherapy facility. Second, the intent. He read Aunt Evelyn's journal entry aloud in the quiet courtroom. My true wish is for Cassie to have the means to build her own life. The words hung there, exposing my family's greed as a violation of the will itself. Third, the harm. Nathan called Gabriella to the stand. She was sworn in. She testified, clearly and calmly, about the instructions to minimize strenuous activity and focus on passive care. She described the pressure, the stolen bonus, and her growing ethical concerns. Then, Nathan played the recording. It was Leo's voice, synthesized from his tablet, slow and clear from the day at the play center. They say stop walking. More money if I stay sick. The gasp in the courtroom was audible. My brother Mark put his head in his hands. My mother stared straight ahead, her face a stone mask of defeat. The judge didn't need to hear more. She revoked the temporary guardianship immediately and dismissed the petition for permanent guardianship with prejudice. She then did something extraordinary. She approved our counterpetition. The corrupt trust was dissolved. A new, ironclad special needs trust was established for Leo, managed by a neutral, court-appointed corporate trustee. Every dollar would be accounted for, dedicated only to him. Then, she addressed my family's lawyer. There is compelling evidence of criminal fraud, elder abuse, and financial exploitation. This court is forwarding this file to the district attorney's office for investigation. She looked at my mother and brother. You are barred from any financial or decision-making role in your son's and brother's life. Visitation will be supervised at the discretion of his legal guardian. She turned to me. Ms. Vance, given the extraordinary circumstances and the de facto care you provided for years without compensation, the court awards you the sum of $300,000 from the recovered assets of the original trust as back pay and restitution. It was over. I had won. But revenge isn't just about winning in court. It's about what you build from the ashes. With the restitution money, I didn't just buy a new life. I founded Evelyn's Clause, a nonprofit that provides legal and financial advocacy for full-time caregivers. We help them secure pay, protect against predatory families, and draw up ironclad care plans. I hired Nathan as our head of legal strategy, giving him a purpose in his redemption. Leo now lives in a beautiful, fully accessible home with a rotating team of vetted, ethical caregivers. I am his guardian, his sister, and his biggest champion. His progress since the restrictions were lifted has been breathtaking. He is walking short distances with support, something they told him to stop. The final piece of my revenge is my peace. My mother and brother are facing criminal charges. Their reputations are ruined. But I don't think about them much. I am too busy. Sometimes, late at night, I read Aunt Evelyn's journal. I think she would be proud. She wanted the money to give me freedom. It did. But not in the way either of us expected. It gave me the freedom to become a protector, to turn my silent struggle into a shield for others. They tried to make me a victim defined by sacrifice. Instead, they made me a warrior with an entire army behind me. And every day, as I help another caregiver find their voice, I remember, the greatest revenge is a life lived so well. The people who tried to break you become nothing but a footnote in your story.